All right. Welcome to this Monday's Homeschool Live show. Today we're talking about whether you should prep your homeschooled kid for college, no matter what, or kids plural. Um, this is a tough one because in the past I have personally said that I thought it was probably to your child's advantage to give them a college prep style education, no matter what, regardless of what you think their plans might be or even are, so they don't change their mind in the future and turn around later and say, oh dear, I want to go to college and now I can't because reasons. I didn't have this class, this prerequisite, this distribution requirement, etc. And I would have agreed with that until probably, I don't know, maybe even as recently as a month ago. I no longer feel that way. And so I'm here today to tell you that I no longer feel that way. If it helps, if it hurts, I don't know, do with it what you will, but let me explain why. First of all, what am I always saying here at The Reason We Learn? Your children are individuals. And to a fairly large degree, we parents, and especially if you're homeschooling, tend to be pretty dialed in as to who that is. If we're taking an honest assessment about our children and looking at them and letting them really flourish and be who they are. Now, that's not to say I think kids are born determined for a certain future or have a personality that's just fixed. That's not what I'm saying. I just also don't believe they're tabula rasa. I think it's a mixture of nature and nurture. And I think we parents are pretty good observers of our own kids to decide what makes them tick, what they enjoy learning, what gets them going, keeps their curiosity alive, and motivates them to learn, to be students. And I say to be students, not in the sense of going to an institution like a school or a college, but to be students of life, to look at life as a smorgasbord of lessons and opportunities to learn and grow and find out new stuff, learn new skills, conquer new challenges, whatever. And so now my approach is to be more of a rebel, I guess, and say if I really mean to encourage people to think outside the box and challenge the existing paradigms, and if I genuinely believe the existing paradigm is broken, and that includes college, the entire higher education credentialing process, yes, even for doctors. At this point now, even for doctors, maybe especially for doctors. I think what we've seen in terms of health and medicine over the last just 3 or 4 years, never mind the previous 100, it's been getting steadily more creepy and scary. So that's not to say I don't think doctors should be well educated in science. Of course I do. I'm simply saying I don't know that medical school, as it's currently constituted, is producing the very best. We're taking the very best in the first place, and I think we're all going to have to be much more careful consumers of medical practitioners into the future. And so therefore, if we're thinking about sending our kids to college because they want to be a doctor, there are still choices to be made. What kind of doctor and what kind of medicine, and philosophically, what's your approach to healing? Do you really want to be a healer or do you want to be a prescriber? Because I'm seeing a lot of people who thought they wanted to be healers. They go to medical school and find out they're sort of middle management bureaucrats checking boxes, filling out forms, and prescribing medications. And that isn't really what they had in mind. But then, of course, they're invested and they spend all that time and money and energy, and now they have to back it out. So back to my original point of, do I need a college prep education for my homeschooled child? Because they might later have to fill in some gaps. I'm at the point where I think if by the time your child is ready to decide on some kind of higher education, pursuing their interests, pursuing the things you as a parent think they need to know to be happy, healthy, well-adjusted, competent, functional humans after they leave your home, that if whatever they need to know to be able to leave your home, not that we're in a big fat hurry to kick our kids out, but if you want to make sure they can survive without you, that is sort of the biological imperative, then if you genuinely believe there's some gap between that and what a college would require in order to admit them, then I'm at the point where I'd say, back out of that and question the college's premise. Question whether they are asking you for something that doesn't make any sense. Because we now know that children educated the way you are educating your children are better prepared for everything. I mean, they're better prepared to be away from home in the first place. They're better prepared to take charge of their own education and take an education. They're better prepared to pick their major, their courses, to decide how to study, to decide, what kind of people they want to be around. All the things that go along with being in a college environment, a higher education environment, they're better prepared across the board. So if they're missing like one little class, I would say it's worth it for them to take the extra, I don't know, semester, year, whatever it is, to fill in that gap, or even to make a case to the school of their choice why they don't need that, why they shouldn't need it, why they're prepared. And they'll be better able to make that case in writing, orally, with a video, any which way you can imagine, than the kid who has to rely on a transcript. Because you educated them to be a fully developed individual human being capable of expressing themselves and probably doing it better than the admissions officers at their school of choice. So it even took me a while to break out of the mental box of, okay, so we'll homeschool, through 12th grade, but then, college. Even though I always said, not every kid should go to college. Not every kid has to go to college, but if they want to, they should be ready. So they all should have a college prep education. Now I'm saying, wait, back up, Deb. Why? Wait, who decided what was college prep? The colleges? Now, why did they do that? Why did they decide that? Why did they decide we're only going to accept students who have this many science credits, this many math credits, this many this credits and that credits and the other credits, and if you don't have this on your transcript, well, we're not even going to consider you. These are the same colleges who've decided, SATs, ACTs, maybe we don't need those. Maybe we don't need objective measurements whether you know the stuff we required you to take. Does that seem incongruous to you? It does to me. How about, are these the same schools who fought tooth and nail in court to keep racial quotas and affirmative action? Do we trust them to make decisions about what your child needs to know before going to the school? And when were these criteria decided anyway? And why do they apply to all students? Who decided, all students need these things, even though your student wants to study this narrow area at a higher level? Wasn't it supposed to be way back that these schools were credentialing for careers? I mean, quite literally, back in the early days when colleges existed to prepare the clergy. In fact, each Ivy League institution was pretty much established to produce clergy members for that particular denomination. Brown for the Baptists, Harvard for the, what was Harvard? I think it was like Episcopalian or something, whatever, the Church of England kind of deal. And Presbyterians were at Princeton. I mean, it almost matched alphabetically, but they weren't educating doctors and lawyers. It was clergy and other teachers. It didn't become a place you had to go first before becoming a doctor or a lawyer or even an engineer until much later, like 20th century later, like mid 20th century later. So, it probably started late 20s. Progressive era. Sound familiar? Yeah. So I would caution people to, step back and think, and I did it too. I fell into it, but they're going to want this. They're not going to let you in. They're not even going to look at your application. Well, we now know that's not true. We know that's not true. They'll look at it. Of course they'll look at it. they're now looking at things differently depending on the school. Of course, the poison ivies I wouldn't, apply to regardless. If they were the last schools on planet Earth, I wouldn't for any reason. But a lot of the schools are starting to look at, wait a minute, we've been looking at applications that ticked all the boxes and it's not been working out so well. So we're going to mix things up a bit. So I think the answer is you educate an educated person and spend the time, especially between grades, let's say 5 and 9-ish, not grades, but those ages, like 10 to 13, 10 to 14 range-ish kind of thing. That's a pretty good time for you as a parent to almost keep a journal, like observe your child, observe the things they're deeply interested in, that they will continue to be interested in despite puberty and the distractions that come with hormones. And, even at home, even in homeschooling, kids get a little wacky at that time. They're distracted. They have emotional outbursts. Come on, we were all human too when we went through it. So what's still grabbing their attention? What still trips their trigger? Make note of that. Have conversations with them about what they like about it. Start doing specific exploration with them of the kinds of things people do in the world with those interests. Ask them for input, but write it down, keep track of it. And I would say it's more important, much more important during this time period to teach your children how to investigate, I hate to call them career options, but investigate life paths that include, vocational type of things. So don't let them get to, sophomore, junior year of what would have been high school and start wondering, I wonder how one becomes a blah, blah, blah. Like that can be conversation as early as 5th grade. I think 4th might be pushing a little bit. I mean, you can have the conversation, but I wouldn't make like a point of it. Starting, 5th grade onward, I would start making a point of it and start asking them, even yourself, model the curiosity. There's so many jobs now that didn't exist when I was a kid. Have you ever wondered how the people become the people who made the CGI for the thing that you love? Or have you ever wondered how they composed the music for the this or that? Or, what do you think the process is these days of becoming something like a chef? Or people who make those elaborate costumes for these amazing, shows or Broadway musicals or whatever. That's, one set of things. Or who do you think repairs all the robots that make the cars? How do they build those robots? Who does that? No one ever asked me this stuff as a kid, and no one ever asked 90% of humanity. Even just sitting around the dinner table, how do you think this happens? How do you think they get the Kleenex to fold into the perfect little folds and then put it into the box? And then, no, I know it's a machine that does it, but who designed the machine that did that? Was it a computer? Wasn't there a human somewhere behind? And what did they have to know how to do it exactly like that? What if we wanted to get rid of the packaging altogether, but still give you the end thing? How would we do that? You can have these conversations with kids and start getting them interested in how things are made, how things, happen in the world. And maybe something sparks in them that they might want to be one of those people, or maybe they just want to talk to those people and find out how those people came to be those people. And what you might find is it surprises you how many of them either didn't go to college or went to college for something totally different than what they ended up doing. And then, of course, after they graduated, had to go through something else, and your kid could get the jump start and skip that 4 years of mess and do the thing they did instead from the jump. And to me, that's the new college prep. That's the new college prep education, is prepping the kid to decide whether they actually need college. That's the missing piece. So you used to say well, give them the college prep anyway, because then they can decide later they don't want to use it. Well, in the meantime, you're still teaching them that there's these things they have to study arbitrarily because some other place might need it someday. Who the hell are they to decide? And what makes them right? Even about the education they offer. When I think of the things I had to take to get into the college I went to, they didn't help me when I was there. Nope. I was an honors bio student in high school. Straight A's. Loved biology. Thought, oh, I'm going to ace this in college. I'm going to take that as my required science because science was required in college too as a distribution requirement. I almost failed. I didn't need it for my major. I had no intention of going on to be a doctor or even a botanist. I was nothing, no kind of scientist. So I didn't do very well. And it brought my GPA down. And then, of course, the almighty GPA determines all kinds of other junk. And I sort of look back saying, wait a minute, why was I required to do any of this in the first place? Now, I'm glad my high school asked me to take biology. Okay, fine. I think biology is worth knowing. But does it follow that the college should have demanded it? Wouldn't it be more important for them to see, like, what is it that you intend to do here? Does it require biology? Okay, it doesn't. Sure. You can come here. You want to major in English? Yeah, that doesn't require biology. I mean, after a while, it starts to get kind of ridiculous. Like, why would they care? Why would they care that you didn't take PE? Or you didn't take exactly 2 years of foreign language that you're never going to use again because almost nobody learns a foreign language in a classroom. If you were immersed in Spanish or Italian or German or any other language or Latin and you can, walk into the school and you can speak these things and that's, a credit to you, yay. Okay, that's one extra thing you can do. But to say that I needed to take my 7 years of French, I didn't need 7 years of French, but they made us take language for that long, middle school and high school. Didn't do as well on my achievement tests as I needed to place out of it. Didn't, pass the AP on it. So there I was again. They're like, you need 2 years of English to graduate or 2 years of language to graduate college. Sorry, not high school. Why? I'm sort of glad they did because then I picked up German and was like, okay, fine. But many, many more people didn't need it. Didn't want it, wouldn't have done it, had to spend money on it. And college is expensive enough as it is. How is that helping you? All the arguments about why it's so important just don't really hold water anymore. They didn't really hold water in the first place. And even I was buying into them. Well, you be a more educated person. Would you though? For all the focus on 21st century skills, 21st century life, I wasn't properly prepared for the latter part of the 20th century, given the stupid way that they were, educating us. So to recap, the answer is no. The short answer is no. You should not necessarily prep your homeschool kids for college no matter what. If you know for a fact, observing your child grades 5 through, let's say 9, that this is a college-bound kid, this kid has their heart set on going to college because reasons. And those make sense to you. And you and your child have researched it, have talked about it, have looked at all the ins and outs and upside downs, whatever. And this is just this is their dream. This is what they want, and they have solid reasons for it. Then you got to do what you got to do. Yeah, I would still argue for push the envelope as hard as you can so that your child is prepared for college, not necessarily the transcript. I still think you can argue your way around that. I still think there are ways that you can say, we didn't do formal PE, but my kid was, running every day, or my kid was doing ice skating or gymnastics or whatever, but we didn't do PE, this counted or something. I think you can just as easily get around that. I think you could even get around the foreign language requirement if you can demonstrate that you have some kind of proficiency get garnered some other way, even through an app, even through living abroad or traveling abroad or having a relative who speaks a foreign language and, hey, look, I can speak it. There you go. I didn't take a class. Can I please apply to your college? I think you could probably get away with it, or you'll certainly find colleges by that point that are going to not make too big of a deal out of it. But that's up to you. But it's definitely not a should have, no matter what anymore. And that puts me at odds with quite a few people I respect greatly in the homeschool counseling world. So your mileage may vary. You may prefer their advice. That obviously is your province. They're your kids. So you got to do what you got to do. I just wanted to share that I don't think anymore that that's advice. I won't be giving that advice myself. Looking at the landscape, looking at what college is offering, looking at some of the questionable decisions colleges are making relative to DEI, relative to just, hiring and tenure and even on-campus behavior and so on. I think colleges are in trouble. in a lot of ways. I think philosophically they need to be overhauled in many cases, not every single school, but many of them, if not most. And I think parents of homeschooled kids should be especially wary because you're putting in so much time and energy to deliver a customized education for your children, which I think is fabulous, and you don't get enough credit for it. Um, and you should be just as intentional about that and encourage your children to be as intentional about choosing what's next. It should never be, well, and then of course you'll go to college, because then that's really no better than the public or the private institutional school. Higher education is still an institution, and it never was, and it is even less so now. We're going back if there were a curve. So if you had like apprenticeships and internships and then it was like college, we're going back that way. And I would predict that by, let's say, could even be as early as 2030, but certainly by 2035, we may well be back there. We may very well be back to a place where more and more employers, like such a number of employers, are not even requiring a college degree, that we can be back where we should have been all along, back where we once were, where you're going to be evaluated based on what you deliver, what you can bring to the table to an employer in terms of skills. Autodidact kind of people are going to be on the, on the rise, on the ascent. They're going to be ascendant. And you have a golden opportunity now, if you have kids who are not yet in high school, to take advantage of that and help them take advantage of that, which I believe is actually a better path for human flourishing, which again is my opinion. I'm not saying it's true. It's just my personal opinion that, one of the benefits of education liberty is to take an education, to seize your life, to take your life, to learn what you want to learn and what you need to learn, to move your own life forward as you see fit. And you can always pivot. You can always change. You can always shift. Now, obviously, there are some things that, math is cumulative. We know that. So if your child decides I'm not really interested in math and then suddenly wakes up at the ripe old age of 16 and says, oh my goodness, I would love a STEM career, but oopsie, I didn't put myself in a path to calculus, that does present a little bit of an obstacle, but it's not insurmountable. Absolutely not. With programs out there are many more of them every day that are designed to get people, not just children, up to speed on math, even through calculus quickly. If you have a child so inclined who is studious and willing to work hard, they can do it. They just need to be willing to put the time in. But how many people have gone back to school in midlife, completely changed careers, got second college degrees, got graduate degrees, shifted and went from being a lawyer to a doctor, or a doctor to a lawyer? This has happened many, many times. There are people who were chugging along doing some job, civil service kind of a job, and then suddenly woke up and said, I want to be an artist. And went off and started painting, and lo and behold, got discovered and became artists later in life. People do make all kinds of changes, and your child may be one of them. So equipping them to adapt, equipping them to take responsibility for those shifts, and to say, all right, I thought I wanted to do this, but now that I've been doing it, I don't like it. It's not what I thought, or, I don't like the lifestyle as much as I thought I would, or I changed my mind and I want a completely different lifestyle. People evolve. And so having the skills to say, all right, what do I need to do? I need to go learn and go to school to get these things, or I can go online and do it, or I can teach myself with books from the library or whatever. That is the preparation they need. And it may dovetail with college, it may not. But I would err on the side of the life prep, adaptability prep, more than college prep. I think college prep is very brittle right now. Very brittle. And what I'm seeing from my tutoring students is that they are brittle because of it. They individually as humans they're brittle, they're fragile, they're confused. They genuinely, you can look in their faces, they genuinely don't think outside those boxes. They've been in those boxes, so they think those are the only boxes. And when you bring up other stuff to them, it seems insurmountable. Have you considered, I was tutoring a girl who wants to go into computer programming. I said, do you want to be a computer scientist or do you want to write code? No, I want to write code. Specifically, I want to build apps. May I ask if you've looked at boot camps? You can become a full stack developer in 6 months. You can be gainfully employed making anywhere from $75,000 to $90,000 in maybe 10 months, maybe a year. Or you can spend hundreds of thousands, spend the next 4 years being taught by people who are not actually out there programming. I didn't say it quite like this, but I just asked her if she looked at boot camp. What's that? So I showed her. No, I need to go to college. Okay. Why? Because, you can't get anywhere with that college diploma. Like, that's what she thinks. And I got nowhere. I didn't push it because not my kid, and that's not what she was hiring me to do. She was hiring me to help her get into college. I was actually trying to talk myself out of a job because I actually cared about the kid. I genuinely to this day think she's wasting her time. But that's what she's going to do. And looking at her face and judging by her answers, she could not even conceive of any other path. And to me, that's sad. To me, that's a sign of someone who is not properly educated. I don't care if they're an honor student in their school. I don't care if they fulfilled all the transcript requirements and then some, with summer courses and after school courses and extra math and honor society and, Phi Beta Kappa and blah, 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 whatever. No, they're not ready. Because life threw me curveballs, and I'm Gen X. I don't even want to think about the number of curveballs that will be thrown students of Gen Z. They could take so many forms. So, I'm not trying to black pill people. I'm just saying that, adaptability is key. And that means adapting to a world where college may not be the right thing or even an option. Might not be an option for them for a variety of reasons, none of which are in your control. So that's my take on this topic. If you have any questions, shoot me a note. If you have any thoughts, if you disagree with me, I'm obviously open to disagreement. Agreement is never required with this community. I just want to share my thoughts as they come up. And again, this is the homeschooling show. You're always welcome to put in a suggestion or a question for one of these shows to say, could you please talk about this? Could you research this? I am more than happy to oblige. And I, as a parent, as an educator, as a citizen, I thank you. This is my Thanksgiving message to all of you homeschooling parents. Thank you for doing what you're doing. I genuinely believe it is a contribution to humanity at this point. I really do. It goes above and beyond just doing something for your own kids. You are not obliged. Don't hear me saying you're obliged. You're not, which is why I'm so grateful. You're not obliged to do anything for any of us, but that you are doing this is a benefit to everyone around you and to your children. And so thank you for that. And I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope you've had a good kickoff to your holiday season. And I will be back on Friday with another show. So have a great rest of your day. I will be on Dissonant Dispatch this evening, sciatica and all, whatever it is going on with my hip. I'm going to raise my desk up after I sign off here, raise it to standing position so I can handle that. And I will be talking about restorative justice and how it's an oxymoron. So hopefully you can attend that live. If you're watching this on the replay and all of that has already occurred, go look for it on the channel. Have a great day, y'all.